Welcome to a very special episode of Vigorously, one that is especially close to my heart because I get to talk to my hometown today, and I am thrilled. Shout out Joey from Trace Remains in the building.
Hey,
I am so
what's
thrilled to have
up?
you.
What's
It's
good?
good. It's good to be talking to home today,
I'm
man.
thrilled to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I know.
Stoked.
I miss it so much. I haven't really kept, as closely with the scene since I left like 13 years ago. But you can fill me in. Fill me in on like what's happening musically in my hometown.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
I remember a healthy hip hop scene. I remember a healthy country scene, and definitely a healthy rock scene. What's happening now?
I would say all of those still probably, and you add like electronic scene. So there's been like a lot of
Mm,
DJs. That's been like a big thing, I would say. That's gone from like more underground rave stuff, which still happens. You get some of that, but where honestly a lot of clubs just had started to have DJ nights more than bands or original artists. So it's been like a mix of that. I'd say it's probably been the biggest transformation. Maybe a little bit. I mean, I'm speaking from a place of ignorance, but maybe a little bit of slowing down in the hip hop scene, a little bit too,
mm, mm.
relative to when the last time you were here. But again, I could be speaking from a place of ignorance. I know there are some really good hip hop DJs that throw really big parties, but it's not quite the same as original acts performing stuff. Um,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and then a very deep rock scene, like as always, from what I could tell, with a lot of degrees of subgenre crossover, and it's man, I feel like Pittsburgh has always had a great crust scene.
Yeah.
So like, what's the big fest? Skull Fest is big, and like bands like Ozrotten and the Subhumans from the UK would always come through, and I feel like that scene's still really healthy. And then yeah, all the different stuff that you get in indie rock, like a lot of shoegaze, or maybe some people now call grunge gaze.
That's where you fit.
Um, a
That's
bit, I would say, yeah, a bit. I would say for sure, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but
it
I feel like
does.
that's my kind of cursory lay of the land.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't like now I want to pay more attention. My next trip, I want to pay more attention now, particularly with the hip hop stuff, because I left right at the height of Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I left like right like 2013, like right around there where the world was starting to know both of those names. And I was
yeah.
like,
Right, right.
no, I don't want to leave right now. The party's just getting started. But you know,
Well, probably to be honest, they didn't leave too shortly, like after you or too shortly before you. I would say, like
yeah,
whenever, however. So, yeah, and I don't think there's ever really been too much. I mean, again, I'm speaking from a place of ignorance. Who knows? There's probably tons of stuff happening underground that you just never know of. But
that's
I
always the
feel like
way.
since then, those have still been the biggest names from Pittsburgh, and whether or not the energy of those two
Yeah,
artists have been replaced, yeah, I don't know. You have to report back.
I will,
Send me a
and
DM.
let
Let me
everybody
know
know.
next time you're here, or just let me know you discover a cool show and say, "Hey, Joey, let's meet there," and we'll go check it out.
Yes, smiling bills. I wish. Lots of good nights there. Lots of good nights at the
Yeah,
festivals. All the above. Even Stage AE. Like they've stepped it up. Definitely.
yeah, they have. Stagey has some great shows. I hadn't been outside there for to see a show until I think last summer. Believe it or not, all my years of being in Pittsburgh, I'd seen plenty of shows indoors, which I've enjoyed. My shows indoors there. I feel like it always sounds really good, no matter where you move around the room, and Um, it was always a good viewing angle to the band and stuff like that. And yeah, but outdoors was also really a great vibe. I saw Justice play there, sort of like electronic group, and then
Hmm.
Krungbin, which I don't know what you characterize them as, more of like rock, kind of jammy. Um, Not really ethereal, but yeah, real vibey. So having that outside on like a nice hot summer night was awesome. They're really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but CJE is great. I love that spot. I love for the bigger acts. I think it's a really cool space. Talking about the Civic Arena before we kind of officially kicked off. Well, it's
R.I.P.
in your poster there. Yeah. Oh, I still. Oh, RIP. Yeah. But they've got a new venue. I forget what they're calling it. They're going to start having shows there in the fall, but it's like I think sort of like a Stage AE style
Okay.
level. Cap, have you heard like Cap venue? Have you heard of this place?
No.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be pretty cool. Like right where the Civic Arena used to be, next to where they built. Um, PPG Paints, which I don't know if you've been to
Oh,
any
right there.
shows
Yeah, I've
there.
been there. I saw Aerosmith there on their very last,
Nice,
the last one.
nice,
That was the last
sick,
time I was there.
nice. Yeah, I've seen a couple of shows there. I saw Radiohead play there. It's
Hmm.
been a hot minute now. I saw Jay-Z play there.
Nice.
I think Paul McCartney played there last year. A lot of groups come through there, but there's I don't know if that means now there won't be as many shows there because this new venue is sort of taking over.
Yeah.
Um, because that's officially like a hockey venue or whatever. But yeah, so it's some new places that are huge, and then there's always like the underground. There's always like house shows and old school standbys like Smalls and stuff, which
I
you
know.
mentioned.
I need to pay closer attention. And I love that you describe somebody's bands as vibey. I think that's all we can do lately with all the genre blending. That
Yeah, it's
we're
true.
like just the up and coming. I mean, is that you've been doing this for a minute? Is that something you feel like you're seeing more of in music? More of the genre blending in general?
Maybe just because time passes and people have to try to continue to find ways to just make unique things and unique sounds, and then those things continue to influence, not just the people making them, but other people that hear it for the first time. And then I also think a big difference is just the compression of space and time with streaming and the access to so much music. I think before digitalization or like
Hmm.
just increased your just the quantity of music that you could hear, it sort of was there was more of like a natural consumption to it too that maybe led to a different rate of evolution and genre blending, so to speak. But um yeah, I don't know if I mean, I feel like people are always on the hunt to try to do something new, and then ultimately you're just like, maybe this is just like recycled but just in a fresh way, which I ultimately think is mostly what it is. And I don't even mean that in a bad way. That's like the way we are too, I think. And I think inadvertently you ultimately just like things that you really love and were very indelible to you when you were first discovering music and really resonated always find their way out into things, whether they're easily identifiable to you or somebody else or not. Like if you pay attention to your archaeology enough, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can see that that's like coming out. So I don't know, sometimes I think maybe it's just a function of how much stuff people are listening to as
Yeah.
well. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see what you think about that. Do you feel like people have been like more and more and more like it's just like a conscious thing, or it's just like a function of like just so much more music being made, or so many more people making music and listening to music for just across a
I
broad range?
Yeah, I feel like it's all of the above. I feel like not only are we just seeing more output, and that's naturally going to lead to the comparisons, that's naturally going to lead to the, well, let me pick this influence out, and then this influence out, and then this influence out. As you hear different things, you're going to compare it to different things, and it's going to sound like whatever it is that you are familiar with before. Try to make it make sense in your own head. We've done that before. We've done it.
Sure.
We're doing it now. We're doing it since. We're also seeing a lot more of an output, and I think the other part of the equation is that fans are more receptive to it now,
Yeah.
particularly younger fans. Like
Yeah, that's true.
before, and I mean, certainly in heavy music, what is punk, what is metal, what is this
Hmm.
subgenre, is this subgenre, period, end of discussion.
Sure.
Yes, sure, there is some of that, but I think now, particularly in the heavy music scene, we're willing to be a little bit more flexible with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And other genres I don't think had as much of a problem with it, but I think now, particularly this fan base, we're a little bit more receptive to it. So once marketers see that, branding, all the above, the artists themselves, the bands themselves, now that they're seeing that audiences are receptive to it, they're saying, okay, then it's go time. I've always wanted to experiment. Now's my chance. Let me take that. I mean, you've been around long enough to watch the music industry change, the Pittsburgh scene change, technology change, but you're keeping up. What makes you
Keep trying.
you are. I can see you are. And but not everybody is so receptive to learning. and being that open-minded. You are. What makes you so open?
Oh man, what a great question. I don't know. I think I just try to not get too stuck with just the types of tools that you have available to you. I think for me with music, music really just always really kicked my ass and blew my mind. And so just participating in the process, I've always just found a love for it. And the tools of the time to me are largely irrelevant from a perspective of, like I said, I'm agnostic about it. Like,
Mhm.
um, or what there's the old adage, hate the game, not the player. I try to think about it like that. Like it's just the game is what it is, and the tools are what they are. And if you continue to have a hunger for something that feels like it's just a part of how you breathe air and live life, and just sort of like, I feel like if you feel compelled enough to have your eyes open enough with life and in the world, that as creatives, you oftentimes just feel like there's this, I don't know, pull inside to just get that perspective out. And whether people value it or find anything in it or not is largely irrelevant, I think, for the purity of the exercise of it. All separate from like the business end and all these other things that we can kind of get into. But yeah, I think for me, it's not like it's a love affair every day, but I think the longer I've lived life and had a continual blessing to play music and to be in bands, and the longer I travel the road, I really just have a love of the process and a love of the game, I guess, so to speak, even though a lot of the business stuff in the modern era drives me crazy. But it did just as much when I was coming up in bands, but for different reasons. So I don't know if that answered your question at all. I'm very curious in life, and
Yeah.
what's the other cliche? Like the learning never stops. I really truly believe that, and that also, I guess, one final thing on that topic. It's like, you never have all the answers, and you never know as much as you think you know. And I think as soon as you get comfortable realizing, yeah, like I don't really know anything actually, um and the more comfortable you become with that, it's just the
Right.
easier it is to just try new shit or whatever
Yeah.
else, and just say, well, I'm just, I don't know, I love being a part of this shit. And definitely, like, the longer I've done it too, it's interesting to not just see all the evolutions as you mentioned, but scenes change, and scenes largely rotate around younger groups of people. And being the old head a lot in shows or whatever is definitely like an interesting thing to, especially because I used to be the baby, so now it's just like
Mhm.
so different. But I don't really, to your point about people and genre blending and appreciating all kinds of things, I really think that's true with music now, because again, to the space-time compression, the way people filter is just different, and that brings a lot of, I think, negative externalities now. But one of the positive externalities is some of that old school filtering doesn't happen, or those silos
Right.
aren't as specific anymore. So
Yeah.
um the only constants change, I guess. So you get comfortable with that, and just I don't know. So I don't know if that answered anything you
It
asked, but I
does.
did.
Not well, it's the passion is the drive. And when you combine that with what I know is the Pittsburgh culture of, look, if I'm doing a job, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna work as hard as I possibly can at it and see it through. That's that's
Most definitely.
that's part of the culture. I mean, Pittsburgh is
For
still
sure.
very full of working class people who they want to know that they can trust you before they invest emotionally. And
Sure.
it does take a
Very true.
minute. It does take a minute before we open up. So you, however, have been able to build community in an environment where it does take a minute for people to warm up. How did you do that?
Oh man, I've just it. I think, like, when I first moved to Pittsburgh, it was before digital, you know, streaming and social media and all that stuff. So the whole world was analog.
Mhm.
Um, and the community more so is even more so, and the all of the culture around fanzines and like trading mixtapes. I mean, like just the notion that you could learn more about this subculture that you were so excited about, but really only through community participation, sort of provided a really interesting platform for growth and participation. And I think investment by people, but it definitely took time. Like, I mean, I remember like the first band I tried to form, like it wasn't easy getting shows right away. And then you sort of have
Hmm.
to build trust and be seen more. And then just sometimes fall into the right bands with certain people. And then,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, I got that show. And then, that kind of opened that door. And, but I think most of it, at least I would think in the early days and all the way through now is like, when we play live, like in any form of band I've ever been in, I really try to just, my attitude is like, man, I'm coming for every plank on the stage. And that's no like shade to anybody I'm playing with that night. Like I'm always humbled and blessed to play with everybody we've always played with. And, we always keep a running detailed list of all the bands we've ever played with and all the shows we've ever played. And, but it's more of like a philosophical thing for me to get up where it's
Yeah,
just
this is
like,
my
you
time.
know,
Let's go.
yeah. And I think like just always doing that, whether it was one person or like a couple hundred, I think over time, people like to your point about earning trust, like one of my core ethos is just like that time and health are our most precious assets. And I try not to take people's time for granted. And, one thing for us always in our lives is like every second, every millisecond, a grain of sand is running through that hourglass. And I try not to be overly dramatic about that, but I just think it's really true. And like, it's a good barometer for how to treat people. And I think having a sense of appreciation, and it doesn't mean everything will always click or you always vibe or that people always dig your shit or whatever. But I think if you can kind of take the approach that everybody's time and attention is valuable and nobody owes you shit. Nobody's going to roll out the red carpet for
That's
you,
right.
nor should they. And if they are, you should probably step back and ask yourself why, because maybe something else
That's
like
also so
awry or
Pittsburgh. That is
you
also
know.
so Pittsburgh. I run into that all the time here where I'm like, and you're leaving your front door unlocked? What are you? And you're telling people you're going on vacation? Are you insane? Like you're inviting somebody to like take something valuable. Like there's just that type of thing. Like you would never do that back home. Here, it's different. It's different.
Yeah,
The sense of community and how they build it is completely different. They
sure.
want that exchange of information because that means they're looking out for each other.
Yeah.
Not at home.
No.
That's not to say that they don't care, but it's survival.
Sure.
It's
And
self-preservation.
it's emotional survival, as you said as well.
Right.
There's an economic thing to it, and I think there's an emotional thing to it as well.
Yeah. It's just so interesting. You do a lot of what you do DIY. I think most artists do anymore. I mean, really.
Mhm.
So, is there something rebellious about doing it that way? Like just staying independent? Like, I think there is a little bit
I think
about
so. Yeah.
staying that way, staying that course when, yeah, you could choose another option, but nah, right now we're good doing everything DIY.
Yeah, and I think in today's day and age, it's made it even that the facilitation of like how to facilitate DIY is like you because the tools have changed. They lend themselves in many ways towards being having a higher probability of success doing things DIY. Um, but that's like a sidecar. Like for me, it's all I've ever really known how to do because again, I guess this is very maybe not even just very Pittsburgh. It's just very, I guess, hardcore and punk rock. It's like that's just what
It's
there's like
yeah.
nobody was coming to do anything for you. So it's just like if you wanted to put out a record, you had to do it. If you wanted to put out a zine, you had to kind of figure it out. And that took other punk rockers or music people or underground stuff to like spread the knowledge. And I think that's just eventually through putting out records or booking shows in other cities in particular, like you just it all comes from this place of underground grassroots. And um, frankly, that's just all I've ever known. And nowadays, it happens to just be, I think, the barriers to entry are so much lower for everything. So
Yes.
it makes a lot of elements harder because the saturation point is just so much more pronounced for everybody. So how you filter through that is a real challenge, and not something to be discounted, to be honest. But um, oh, sorry, my rice cooker just went off. Sorry,
It's
that
okay.
caused the funny noise. But yeah, we've just always been. It's just always how we've done business, and I've never been averse to good partnerships if they make sense. But there's just never been anything presented to us that made sense. And it really has been more about building out our team with personnel on a DIY basis or a partnership basis to help us either grow in this area or maybe recognize this blind spot here where we're not so good, or so somebody can maybe lend a hand through with that. And so I don't know. Yeah, that's just kind of the way it's always been.
It's self-preservation. If one thing is going to ensure that I'm doing this for the long haul for as long as I possibly can, it's me taking care of things myself.
Sure.
Or at least doing that as much as possible.
Yeah, well, because it's like that thing too. Like, um, if you want something done right, do it yourself. I think that's like so true in so many areas, and nobody's ever going to care as much as you will.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to fucking care. I mean, your mom or your baby brother or sister maybe, but like, you know, so it's like,
Consistency, but
yeah,
consistency ends up being longevity.
yeah,
Maybe it doesn't work out perfectly as you planned it, but you're still showing up. That's always going to count more for than anything, I
for
think.
sure,
For
for sure.
I mean, you've watched that happen, you've experienced that as a band. Every band hits those moments where it's easier, where or they're reassessing and they're thinking maybe it's easier to stop than continue on. But what has
I think that
helped?
all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so what has helped Trace Remains like power through that and survive those moments and say, no, we're still here. I still want to be here.
It's funny. Anytime I have like a moment where I'm like, hey, maybe this runs up, maybe this has run its course or whatever, a new song will come up, or there will just be a new idea, or like there will be an opportunity to play a show, or like something like that will be very organic and natural. Like it's and sometimes it's just a matter of taking a step back and figuring out and really doing an honest assessment of what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think once you can hopefully come to a decision point, you lean in. And for me and for us, it was like we had a record that was sitting out there that was the first thing that we did several years ago, and then it got shelved, and we never released it. And that record got recorded shortly after like COVID, like things started kind of opening up after the pandemic, and so we recorded that record. And then it kind of sat. We ultimately released two singles from it, and that was like the first things that we offered to the world. And then it was like, then we had another record that we released. It was the Leverage the Tides record in 2024. And I think it was just that project was very specific vision, and just that was exciting. And then once you're committed to the bit, it was like, all right, like it's not easy every day, but part of I think discipline and part of the work is continuing to push through the moments where there's a lot of rejection or it's hard or like you're suffering from that imposter syndrome. And it's just but I know I've learned that that's just part of it. I think probably even some of the biggest artists in the world that you would think have the biggest egos from a public perspective, privately, and whether that's
Mm-hmm.
because you're always trying to grow, you're always trying to reach for the next thing, or you just are still that 10-year-old kid in your bedroom trying to lip sync to a song or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think it just you gotta like if you love something enough, you'll naturally find a way to stick to it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't, that's also okay too. Like, I don't think I think that's also like one thing I've at every decision point I've tried to make the assessment. if I did step back from this and sort of say, hey, okay, I'm going to shelve this project or do it at a less aggressive rate, am I okay with that? And I think the answer has typically always been no, which is
Yeah,
why I always keep going to. And I think I always think to myself, I'd rather live in failure, not regret. And when I get to more of the end of the line in my life and I have this opportunity to kind of like look back and look over the things that I could have done or I did do or could have taken a risk on. I know that I don't want to look back and feel like, well, the reason I didn't do that was because I was just afraid. I definitely don't want that to be the case. Sometimes you just don't have the resources or you can't or you have other responsibilities or there's, life just life's on you and that is what it is. But when you have the opportunity to lean into a passion and really try to go for it, I think if you know you might look back and have regrets, you owe it to yourself to keep trying until
right.
maybe you hit a moment where you're like, hey, I think I gave that shot. I stood in the batter's box and I took a lot of swings at pitches, and I'm really comfortable saying, hey,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore. But for me, I don't know. I just keep rolling.
As long as the answer to that is still no, you should do it. Anybody that's genuinely passionate about anything, just do it because we talked about this before. Time is so finite. It's
Yeah,
not it's not dispersed like
and it goes
often,
fast.
and it does go by
Yeah,
fast. Try your hardest to make the best of it that you absolutely possibly can. It's nice to hear that the desire to be creative and the enjoyment behind being creative is part of the passion here, and that's part of the fuel that keeps you going. When did you realize that you were creative and liked being around other creative people?
oh man, I think you know. So my mom always really encouraged me to do a lot of crazy stuff. So when I was just a real little kid, I mean, we would do. My parents had me learning piano from like 5 or 6, and my mom had me do like child acting and modeling and
Mm,
creative summer camps and stuff. So I think I always had a natural aptitude towards it. Um, but I think when it really clicked was just hearing rock and roll on the radio for the first time. Like when I was really young, I heard Bon Jovi's "You Give Love a Bad Name" and on the radio, and I remember that just like I was like, "Whoa, that stuck with me."
yeah.
And then when I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" when that came out, and I was in elementary school, and that just rocked my world. And I think like then like figuring out bands and then it just became a whole world, and underground music and playing in bands and watching bands. So I think that really just struck a nerve with me. It felt like it was this continual path from when I was this young boy that just loved entertainment. I think really just loved sound, like that whole world of creativity just really felt like my tribe and always kind of has been. And I think the longer I've felt a part of that tribe, I've just wanted to continue to hone my craft and
Mm,
try to get better at it and sharpen the blade. And like, okay, if I'm going to take the time to make this myself and then offer it to the world in a way where I might be marketing it to see if people are interested in it, well, now they're going to commit their time to it. Let's try to make it the best I can make it. And I think it's easy to say that. Don't think it's always easy to do that.
no, easier said than
So
done. So,
yeah, yeah,
sometimes external things make it hard. But
sure.
when you latch onto something, especially at such a young age, like you're talking about, it does have a hold. I can't explain it in any other with any other verbiage. It has a hold. Like it captivated you for a reason. So why not roll with it? There's something,
Yeah,
something resonated. And Pittsburgh
there's
does
well,
love Bon Jovi. I know New Jersey claims Bon Jovi, and they can, rightfully so, but don't get it twisted. Pittsburgh does love Bon
listen,
Jovi, and
they
they
do
do
love the
sell.
Bon
They do
Jovi.
sell when they come to town.
They do, and I think with music for me, it's like it's the thing that before we even had spoken language, we were uttering
Yeah.
sounds as to replicate emotional pull and feel. And I think when from as a child that resonated with me, and like going to church, like I was raised Catholic. It's not
Hmm.
something that really stuck around, but once I became a teenager and stuff, but I, pretty consistently every Sunday, my parents would take me to church, and um, my favorite part was always the music. Like there were
Hmm.
songs that I always liked to hear. Everything else was just felt like so boring and just a drag and just I don't know. I never extracted much value, but something about the emotional pull of the music to represent some spiritual approximation of something was, I think that resonated with me. And so then something about performance of rock and roll and
Hmm.
then punk rock and all these other things that I got into probably are somewhat rooted in that, which I don't want to overplay that music is always just a spiritual thing, but it's definitely a deep thing for me.
Yeah.
Maybe spiritual is an overstatement every time I would refer to it, but it's certainly something heavy and something that I take very serious, and I
It's
think plays an important role in a lot of people's lives. So,
it's an emotional thing for certain,
yeah,
for more
it
than
is.
anything. But I love hearing about the church like upbringing though too. Is it possible that maybe you bring or brought some of what you used to see with the choirs and all that into what you're doing today?
Probably, probably somewhere. I mean, I think there's in our music, there's a lot of journeys, I think, emotionally, and things build into arcs. Um, I think church music replicates that because it's, you're trying to emulate the type of worship, I guess. So maybe
Hmm.
there's, you know, um, an extra emphasis on simplicity of emotional weight in the music,
Hmm.
and maybe somewhere that translates into the goals of what we try to write, and try to draw the listener in that way where they feel emotionally invested. So probably
Yeah.
somewhere, maybe. I don't know. It's so hard to say, maybe somebody could do like a psychological reading of me and tell me about that.
That's where it
I
all
don't know.
started. That's where it all went
Yeah,
downhill. Yeah.
right, 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 totally. Like, man,
From
you should have
there.
just stayed in the choir. You should have just like stayed at the organ and played and sang songs. But yeah, to me, it was always the most compelling part of church.
Origin
So,
stories are origin stories are more compelling than anything to me. They're always so fun, even
I
especially
know,
when villains are involved. Especially
right?
when villains are involved.
I
My,
know.
let's talk about breathing air because this is a good time to bring it up, and
Sure.
particularly the video, because the video does tell this type of story. It is a revenge story, which I was like, okay, we're going like full blown production with this. Like it could have been a 2 hour movie and I would have been entertained the entire.
Ah,
It could have been. Like
I know.
it really could have been. And it's a revenge story for anybody that doesn't know. I just want to make sure that everybody's okay though. Like the vampire that was sucking the life out of the other mascots that I was seeing. Did he wear a bulletproof vest? Like please tell me about the making of this video.
It was rad. I mean, we had never, yeah. I mean, every time we've made a music video, I've always tried to like not up the ante, but like tweak the formula, like try to do something fun with it. I grew up in an era of music videos, and um, they're always, I think, meant to be accompanying statement pieces to the world that you're building and what you want the song to sort of say. It's an opportunity to, you know, maybe not just have some fun with some of the themes, but deepen them and stuff. So
Mhm.
the springboard was like, once I knew that was going to be one of the singles, it was always like, well, okay, we established a certain world in Zero Hour, which was the first single. And so I talked with Max, the director, and we were like, what if we continued that story, but in a way that was standalone, where you could just see it on its own and it's totally fine. Um, or if you saw them in tandem, it was like, oh wow, this is actually there's a
Mhm.
little bit of an arc going on here. I don't know. Have you seen the first video? Did you see the Zero Hour video? If not,
I
you have to check it out.
I didn't see that one, but it's gonna make more
You
sense
have to
now.
check it
I
out.
saw the
Yeah, you have
breathing
to
air
check
one.
it
Okay.
out. You'll have to check it out and watch it in sequence and then see. And then shoot
Yeah.
me a message afterwards, and I'll be interested to get your take on it. But yeah, it was the concept was sprung out of that storyline and taking that character and saying, okay, how can we play with some themes in the music, um, and lyrical themes, but raise the production? Because if you see Zero Hour, you'll see what I mean. Like that was the first video we tried to do some new stuff, and then with Breathing Air, it was like, okay, how do we maybe raise the bar even more? So shooting some squibs was part of it, which neither myself or Max had ever done before. And Max has done a lot of like short films and commercials and stuff up to this point, but never any like live action with that. So it was like with gunshots and stuff. So that was new territory for all of us. So we had to find some rad effects people locally
Oh,
that could
okay.
do that. And but he did survive. We did have, yes, like we did all, it was a full production, like all hands are on deck from a safety perspective. We had, what do they call that, like not an arms controller, but well, there's a word for this, but
Safety coordinator, maybe. I
yeah,
have no
safety
idea.
coordinator, stunt coordinator, which we had, but then there
Yeah.
was somebody that was specifically responsible for the gun and for the
Props manager.
ammunition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a whole deal. So it really just evolved through the concept where it was like, okay, well, if we try to do that, we have to kind of commit to this effect if we can pull it off. And then it just, like a lot of these things, it becomes mission creep. You establish one idea, and then you're just like, okay, well, now we can't not go for it because
Now we're in it.
yeah, we've committed to it. And it was the same thing with like the motorcycle. Like I had some
Mhm.
ideas I always wanted to get in this one location. And I, over the years had sort of talked with some of my friends and people that, I'd worked with about maybe a way to incorporate it. And then there was just never a sensible way. But when Max and I were working on this concept, I was like, I think this is the first time we could maybe do it. If you think you could pull off the shot, and he was like,
Mhm.
yeah. So it was a little bit of a dare mixed with a risk, maybe, for some of that stuff. But yeah, I think that's just natural evolutions and wanting to outdo yourself, which I don't know what the fuck we'll do for the next one to sort of
I,
outdo that.
I think you got to
Like,
keep with the revenge theme, or I think we got to continue.
yeah,
I think we
well,
got to continue the story.
we are. Well, we are. It's. I don't know if there's. I mean, not to reveal our hand too much, but we are working on a third single or video for the third single, which would be out after the EP drops. But the
Mhm.
goal would be to tell basically a trilogy across the three music
Right.
videos and to have a whole arc, and then have a version of it where all three videos, sort of sequence together and make something out of that. So we'll see. It's kind of like the next
Yes.
project in the works to sew it all up
Come
and to
on, Tarantino. Let's Kill Bill this.
tell
Let's do the
right.
trilogy. Let's
Hey,
do it.
don't listen. Don't. I can't reveal too much because if I say too much about Kill Bill, it might reveal too much. But
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. But
That was a head fake. That was a head fake. No.
I liked where that was going. But for anybody that doesn't know, we're talking about the Zero Hour EP. Yes, it's on the way very soon. By the time this comes out, it will be out. And you did mention, I've heard you mention before that Breathing Air specifically, that's the single that you might be most proud of the entire thing. So what about it are you most proud of?
Just proud. I mean, man, I don't know how to evaluate that because, to be honest, I know a song is done at the end of the line when I'm so sick of it that I think it's no longer good.
Mhm.
But all up to that point, I was like, oh man, the world needs this. This is like the best thing. Like, this is all I can listen to. Um, I don't know. Well, it's so to say I'm most proud of, man. It's so interesting. It's so hard for me to answer that specifically. Let me give me a second to kind of get my words together for that. I would say, well, okay, so it's concise. I like the fact that it's very concise. It's like 3 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. And to me, the magic number is 333 with rock songs for singles, at
Mm,
least, because it's especially today's day and age with attention spans. I think it's important to try to focus. And if you're unknown, if people don't, if you're relatively unknown artist, it's important to, I think, focus people's attention. Try to showcase some of the best of what you have. Um, and yeah, I think that was a song that the way it came together was really concise, and it was an idea I had that I was really excited about, and felt like it was definitely one of the best song ideas I had had, really, that I had brought to the band. And um, yeah, I think it really captures our energy really well. It's maybe a little bit more on the aggressive side for some of the stuff we do, especially once people hear the EP. There's um, some more slower and vibey. I won't say
Mm,
slow songs, but there's stuff where the tempo slows down, gets a little bit more ambient and vibey. But Breathing Air is definitely, like, I think, a very concise statement that rips pretty hard. It opens the EP. Um, so I don't know. I think I'm most proud of it because it's done. We got it there.
yeah.
It's the latest thing we're working on, and I love the video, and I love the riff, and yeah, it's like, all our songs are like kind of like, I don't have any kids, so it's like they're all like
Yeah.
little versions of kids. So it's like it's the
You're
latest
not
one
the
that's
first musician to tell
coming
me
up in
that.
the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we'll see how you're doing, the young one. So yeah, it's the latest and greatest. But we have a feeder track called Please Disregard that's dropping a week from today. I know, less than a week, next Tuesday. And it's
Okay.
sort of like the third and final single from the EP, which, the EP just drops a couple days after that on the 17th. But which, like you said, will be out by the time this video comes out, or by the time this interview comes out. So it's totally irrelevant. But um, I probably, if we were to have this conversation 2 weeks from now, I'd be like, no, 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 this is the
But
most
that's
proud
my
of. So
favorite.
yeah, I don't know. It's so hard. It's such a hard question, Val. I gotta come up with a better answer for that
Okay,
one.
well, while
Got me
you
on that
think
one.
on it, I'll throw another one at you.
Yeah, hit me.
There's obviously a conscious effort to make these earworms something memorable. And yeah, doing it in a concise way helps toward that goal. How do you know what makes an earworm, or is there some sort of formula that's involved here to where you walk away knowing, okay, I made this what I wanted it to be. I know that this is going to resonate.
I wouldn't say there's a formula. I'm less. There's probably less a formula and more for us. And I can only speak specifically for us. Obviously, I would say it's more a process,
Mm.
and that's involved all the people involved in Trace Remains, the band itself, um, my producer and engineer, Dave Heideck, who I've worked a lot with over the years and built a lot of trust with. Dave's a classically trained guy, and both from an engineering perspective as well as a compositional perspective. So he hears music in a very unique way and has really great ears. And I think it always starts with the emotional resonance behind a riff or an idea, and really, I think how either the riff or the chord structure fits with the top
Mm.
line vocal piece, and not even lyrics, I wouldn't say, because to me the lyrics come later, but the top line melody is something that the kernel of that comes early on. And I think if those two pieces are doing the dance correctly early, then I feel like it's something that's worth presenting to the band. And then the band can kind of jam on it a bit and put it through their filter. And then inevitably something interesting is going to come out of that I wouldn't be able to come up on my own, or resolve on my own. Like I might have gotten it 2/3 of the way there. And then it's like, okay, how do we make this more interesting, or switch it up, or should the time signature change, or maybe this part goes there or whatever. And then the band helps with that, and then it kind of gets to Dave, and Dave will sort of um, be like, oh, this is great, but let's maybe make the bridge the chorus, or something like that I couldn't really hear right away. So I would say, and not every song goes on underneath goes undergoes that specific process every time. Maybe that's as detailed and rearrangey as it gets, but it's like fair game for every idea.
Yeah.
And I would say that's largely how we build it. And it's an intuitive sense, though, for me. Like when I evaluate something, if I'm evaluating a demo, there's so much stuff where I'm just like, nah, this just doesn't,
Mm.
the dance just really isn't there. And I don't know, I feel like if it speaks to me deep enough, then I trust my filter enough and taste enough that within what I'm trying to do aesthetically with Trace Remains, that then I feel like, okay, this is worth moving on. But honestly, Val, like song to song to song, I think it's important to challenge yourself to make each time you do that tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher. Not to the point where you suffer for it, but you just don't rest on your laurels and you really trust yourself to keep pushing your line. And then that there's a natural intuitive sense where it's like, okay, pencils down, like we're done. We're done with this. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's a specific formula. I think there's just there's people within the village that I really trust, and
Hmm.
friends that I've been, music friends that I'm not in bands with though that I trust a lot. They either are in bands or that listen to a lot of music that I can send demos to early on, and and they can kind of be like, "Wow, this is one of the best things you've done," or "That just sounds like a B-side," or whatever. And
Right.
I don't know. I think, um, and also developing thick enough skin to realize like maybe this hits for the first week for me, but it might be okay if it doesn't with everybody else. And then
Hey,
you just
yeah.
gotta try to keep developing a deep enough bench of ideas, which isn't always easy because kind of
No.
comes and goes with the seasons or how things are rolling in your life or whatever. Um, or however you carve out a pocket of work, which isn't always waiting around for your muse. I think sometimes it's about discipline and consistency to try to carve out some stuff, and you sit down, and sometimes it's about inspiration. Sometimes it hits me in my head and I'm like, I gotta go work on that and crank
Yeah.
it out. And other times it's like, let me sit down at the piano right now, let's try to like just bang on something, and before you know it, maybe something's popping up, maybe something isn't. But yeah, I would say anything's fair game depending on what the rhythm of the season is for work production. And I try not to make any rules about it, but trust my ear ultimately, um, and then trust my feedback I get from there, from the people that I really value and
It
trust.
sounds, yeah, it sounds like it boils down to a philosophy, and that philosophy is it'll all reveal itself in time, on its own time, and giving it the breathing room to do that, and and
Yeah, I
and
think
and
that's
being
true.
patient enough to allow for
Definitely.
that.
I definitely think that's true. I mean, I think sometimes there's pieces of music too that just aren't ready.
Mm,
Maybe you're not ready to fully develop them yet. Like I've found that for myself. I mean, there's a song on this EP that the demo idea is probably 10 years old. And so but it wasn't quite its time to flourish, or it wasn't, well, I didn't have the skills or the tools yet to really maybe give it the proper form that it deserves. So yeah, I think sometimes understanding that there's maybe a give and a take with that too. So you can't get too attached to
mhm.
ideas all the time as well. And sometimes it's keep going, keep coming up with new stuff, and keep pushing, because it's so much of the battle is that it's staying excited to keep working on new stuff, especially if the juices aren't always flowing.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it's just, yeah, for whatever reason, the forum isn't ready. You're like, you as the vessel just aren't ready. It's like just not there
Let it
yet.
go. Just let it
Yeah.
go. Let it come whenever it's ready. Let it cook, and then
It circles
yeah.
back through the lazy river, and then it just like comes back around, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna jump on the tube now. I'm gonna
And
be going
now
that
we're
way.
ready. Exactly. That it, is some of this what's involved when you're making the choice to put out Zero Hour as an EP versus a full length album. Like letting it reveal itself in time and then using that process to make that informed decision as to whether to turn it into some a full length album or EP.
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I would, to be, if I'm fully honest with you, with Zero Hour, it was more like we had we had three songs that were done for that, and that was all we had recorded, and there was like some, like I had some new demos floating around, but we started to talk about releasing those three over the course of that conversation, three other ones got developed, and then it sort of became we kind of locked into some things with making some videos and some dates with the releases, and then it became a very natural sort of like okay, that's what we have. And I don't say necessity became the mother of invention in this case, but probably more so in this instance than would be typical. Like I would say like for the last record, like maybe out of like 2 dozen songs, 10 of them
Mm.
became things that we worked on. But in this case, it was just different for whatever reason. I don't know if it was, we felt like maybe there was a bit of a lull in releasing something new, and we had some new ideas that we were really excited to sort of get to, too, I think. Um, because right now, truth be told, we're in a place where there's nothing new recorded, and it's all just new ideas. So it really will be probably more the instance where we'll have a bunch of material again, and then we'll sort of evaluate where that stuff is sonically, and just what the best material is and how it's all coming together. I feel like that's always a very natural sort of editorial process, even if
Mm.
it feels painful. Ultimately, in retrospect, you'll look back and be like, yeah, there was a natural rhythm to that, which I think for the next cycle of music will probably be more like that. But for this one, it was interesting. It was more like two distinct batches of music that really made a lot of sense together. And then we had locked into some logistics, and it was like, yeah, this is a pretty concise statement that ended up also being a pretty natural evolution. Because there was even some discussion. I was like, well, maybe I'll just release all of these as singles and it won't come together as an EP, and it'll just,
Mm.
but there was a very natural flow once I sequenced it. And I was like, oh, this works out pretty well. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you that it was all part of a strategic plan for this one, but less so than normal,
You
to
let
be
it
fully
tell
honest.
you what to do. That's my Target philosophy. I walk in that store,
Yeah,
it tells me what to buy. I don't know what
true.
I'm buying. That's just what happens. You just
Totally.
get sucked in. But no, no, in all seriousness, you're letting the music tell you, okay, there's a cohesive element here, and maybe there's not enough for a giant full-length album, but there is enough for an EP, and that's what we're gonna do. That's how we're gonna present it. Just let it tell you how it presents itself, whatever that is.
Definitely. All of that is true. And we also actually had expanded to play with a third guitar player. So we were technically a five piece, and we had these songs, which were three songs, which we was the first recorded music with our third guitar player. And I think there was also just a genuine excitement to get some new stuff out there and represent
Mhm.
that era of the band. So yeah, like you said, it just we flipped. We went into the record store, just started flipping through covers, and it was like, oh yeah, cool. Comes together really naturally. I'm going to buy this one at the store and roll with this.
Yep. That's how it is. So if
Yeah.
somebody listens to Trace Remains for the very first time, what do you hope they walk away understanding about you as a band and your sound?
I would hope people just, listen and, okay, there's like an edge to it, like we rip it. And then I would hope that the listener feels like there was emotional depth to the songs. Um, and then ultimately took them on a bit of a journey in that respect. And then I think ultimately that they just felt like it was worth their time, not a waste of it. And at the bare minimum, even if they don't fuck with the sounds, it was like, no, that wasn't a waste of my time. This guy's like got something going on. I think that's like all I ever really wish for. I'm
Yeah.
a humble person. And if people like love it, man, I'm geeked. But yeah, I would hope they just appreciate it for um maybe not its level of originality because we're just playing rock and roll music, but I think we really try to take our influences and build something pretty unique sounding out of that. And then I would hope people have an appreciation for that.
Yeah. And I also hope that whenever they're telling the story of Trace Remains, whenever you guys are not in the room, humility is part of that equation. That's a theme I'm hearing here. Like really, that's a theme that I'm hearing. Like, hey, we're making sure that we're staying humble with all of this and treating it like a process, not something that we think we can manipulate or manufacture.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just goes back to the ethos or the philosophy, that we talked about earlier in the conversation. I really value people's time, and I don't. Um, I'm very gracious and excited when people like our songs or when we play shows and people will dance and stuff. That like always really means a lot to me, and are some of my favorite moments in life to have those types of reactions. But I don't take them for granted, and I don't think I deserve them. And there's so much music that you could listen to in the world that if you take time to fuck with us, like, thanks. Like, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. I love where this is going. I can't wait to see where it goes next. Congratulations on the EP. Thank you so much for your time, Joey. This has been fun.
Thanks, Val. I appreciate it. Likewise, it's been great. It's great to talk to a fellow Yinzer.
Yes. Is Yin's a myth? Let's settle this though, because sometimes
I
like
think it is. I think
I,
it is, maybe.
this is going to be a hot take for anybody from our hometown listening. This is going to be a hot take, but I swear to you, I really only heard Yins used maybe a handful of times in real life. And but they made it a thing. Like it's part of Pittsburgh's branding. It's
Now
part
it's
of the
just part of
lore.
the branding and the lore. I
Yeah.
agree with you on that.
Now it just
I totally
is.
agree with you on that. The accent of like Yinzer is like a
That's
real
real.
thing for sure,
That's real. Yeah.
but Yins itself is a common word. I don't know. I think that's yeah, I'm with you on that. Totally.
You have to find a very specific person like just for that to be used. Usually they're older, usually like somebody else around them was using it a lot and then they just kind of picked it up. But it's not all the time. Like
No.
my own parents don't really use it.
People
The
make it sound like it's ubiquitous. Like if you just go around Pittsburgh, you're gonna
you
hear
just
that all the
hear it.
time. But
Not
no.
all the time, but it's fun to laugh at. Like for me, it's fun to share with people that are local to me in Minnesota because they go, "Is that really what it's like?" And I just, yeah, I run with it. Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we do. Like if that's what
Totally.
you think, sure, I'll play along if that's what your image is in the head. Like
Go along with the bit. Play the
I
part.
for the plot, always for the
Yeah.
plot.
100%, dude.
Well, Joey, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I can't wait for this to come out. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.